I am the CEO of a nicotine pouch company, and I'm also a tobacco harm reduction. And I would like to, first of all, thank everybody for inviting me. And Professor Karl Fagerstrom put down the numbers. Sweden and Norway and even Iceland are already there. We have reached the WHO and the BECA target of 5% daily smokers. There has been by Dr. Boukovinas mentioning, and also yourself, Doctor, we need more data. I would like to, if it's suitable now, to show some slides about big data, the Swedish experience, and in particular in connection with the European Beating Cancer Plan. I'm Bengt Wiberg, CEO of Stink-Free AB, an inventor and a patent holder of a new pouch technology. I'm also the founder of EU for Snus Consumer Crowd Movement. We have thousands of members and followers from over 100 countries. And more than 80% of us are former smokers who has managed to quit smoking for good with either original snus or modern tobacco-free nicotine pouches. And the subject today is the Swedish experience of snus, big data, massive data, and European Beating Cancer Plan. I was very happy Dr. Fagerstrom just showed this picture. It shows the smoking prevalence among 15 to 24 years old in the European Union, plus Norway and the UK. And this is fresh data from the Eurobarometer 2021. If we look down to the left, you find in orange, the smoking prevalence of these young adults in Sweden is down to 3%. But look to the far left, this is incredible. Norway, where snus was introduced only some 20 years ago, is even lower smoking prevalence than Sweden. So what is the Swedish experience? It has been said by Dr. Fagerstrom, I think, the tobacco consumption in Sweden is the same as the European Union average. But we have the lowest tobacco mortality as well as the lowest cancer rates in the European Union. So why? Mainly because Swedes have replaced smoking with snus or modern oral nicotine pouches. And I would also like to mention, which is not in this diagram, Iceland have same figures, I think, as Sweden and Norway. Let's change. I'd like to connect now with what has been said before. And I've studied the BECA, the European Beating Cancer Plan, carefully. And I like to bring out 4 quotes from the BECA plan. It starts by saying that about 40% of cancers in the EU are preventable, such as cancers caused by smoking. And as we go further into the document, suddenly we have a quote saying, tobacco consumption continues to be the leading cause of preventable cancers. Snus is a tobacco product. So it's widening. We go from smoking, which everybody knows is the most dangerous thing you can do. Takes the most lives on the planet, even more than COVID-19, if I'm correct. And as we go further, the BECA plan says, through rigorous enforcement, including stricter rules on novel products. So we are going from smoking to tobacco to anything containing nicotine. That's what I read in this report. Let's continue. Another quote, Europe's Beating Cancer Plan will use the remarkable potential of new technologies and scientific progress. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a look at relative risk. This is a recent study, one of several, trying to plot the relative risk of different nicotine products in relation to smoking, where smoking in this case has 100% risk. If we look to the far right, to the very lowest relative risk as compared to smoking, we do find new technologies, science. We have, for example, heat-not-burn devices, electronic cigarettes, and non-tobacco pouches, nicotine pouches. And for those who doesn't know how snus or nicotine pouches looks like, this is like a tea bag that you place under your upper or lower lip. Snus is not a novel product. It's been around in Sweden for some 200 years. But the evidence, the epidemiological evidence is overwhelming. And what we see now in Norway is they are repeating the Swedish experience to become the Norwegian experience, but they are doing this in a much, much shorter time, as you will see. So let's have a look at some big data in regards to risks of snus. In 2017, the Global Burden of Disease study, which is the biggest metadata epidemiological study in the world, was published in the Lancet. And it concludes that Swedish type of snus has no higher relative risk than 1.0 for any health outcome. And this study, the GBD study, covers 26 years of published science worldwide. And for those people who are perhaps not so familiar with relative risk, I brought along a quote from Professor Stefan Willers from the Swedish Medical Journal in 2018. It says, a recent large epidemiological study could not demonstrate any increased risk of disease with Swedish snus. There is more big data. The Karolinska Institute released in May 2020. They did a study on, perhaps I should say that Sweden has enormous registers of persons' health, cancer registry, and we even have cohorts going back more than 30 years. And the conclusion was that compared to never snus use, ever snus user was not associated with oral cancer. And this study covered 418,000 Swedish male participants, which correspond to 9.2 million person years. And not shown in this slide is the fact that normal snus use, which is 4 cans or less per week, each one contained 20 pouches, is related to 35% lower risk of getting oral cancer than non-users of snus. This is amazing statistics. So my conclusions is that the Beka plan sadly misses out on making pointing out the huge difference in risk between combustible and non-combustible nicotine product. And as you said before, Dr. Ikonomidis, we have the evidence in Sweden, Norway, Iceland, and why not copy this or consider it instead of inventing the wheel again, so to say. And also, like it is suggested here, to regulate lower risk alternatives rigorously. So I finished by saying that I believe the Swedish experience should be available to all Europeans and acknowledged, and also acknowledge that nicotine in itself is not what causing cancer. If this was included more in the report, I think the results would be much better.